playing? And hello, welcome to TBI Tuesday. Here with Simply Ops and
Paula.
Paul. Yep. Okay. Oh wait, we need to try it again.
Paula?
Yep, there we go.
Better?
Yes. Sorry. So I am, how do you say, still messing around with stuff, trying to make it better.
We're getting there. We're
And,
getting there.
yeah. So today we figure we'll talk about what is it? I forgot. So recovery and what is it?
Caretaker.
Caregivers.
You didn't like my caretaker word. Yeah, I had a question. Well, it was something even you had talked about before, about an app that you wanted to help develop. Do you say anything about it? Because people will steal your idea.
No, I don't care.
But just an app that people who are in the hospital, regardless of the reasoning for being in there, have a quick way that they can reach a multitude of people quickly to say, hey, man, I'd love a cup from Starbucks, a cup of coffee from Starbucks, or I need a toothbrush, or I need more toothpaste, or today I'm just not up for visitors. And so from there, that got me to thinking, what were things that maybe we could talk about that you wish you had or didn't have while you were in the hospital, that a lot of times people don't think about as the visitors going to visit someone.
Yes.
And before we start with that, I had started following a young lady on TikTok by the name of Alexa, and let me see what her TikTok account name is. I apologize for not having that in advance. But anyway, she also suffered the same type injury as you did, a diffuse axonal TBI back in...
So it's like
go ahead with
shaken
that.
baby syndrome for adults.
Right, and hers happened in March of 2019. A skiing accident is what happened with Alexa. And she had that diffuse axonal. She had multiple facial fractures, a meniscus tear, and a basal skull fracture. 17 years old at the time of her accident. She was in the hospital for 4 months, having spent 10 days in PICU, which is pediatric ICU, and then was transferred home. And when she went home, she required full care. Transfer, feeding tube, everything. So I reached out to her and her mom both to get the same questions that I was curious about with Aubrey, things that you did or did not have or wish that you had while in the hospital.
Yep. And sorry, real quick, just say, hey, Mary Beth, thanks for coming here, and Melissa. Hey, Melissa Rodriguez, my buddy in Texas.
Oh, not Melissa, Georgia, Melissa. Right. So should we just go with the questions here?
Yeah.
Okay. All
sure.
right, so I'll ask you, and then I'll also respond with what Alexa has said with these same things, okay? So what was the most significant need you felt you had while in the hospital, excluding any medical care that you required?
What did I need? Well,
and it could be, any sort of thing.
Well, I could say the funny-ish thing. I wanted Phil's mint mojito extra creamy. and sweet. But anyways, I love coffee. I think that's very, obvious. But I just sometimes, this is, how do I say, much later on in my process, like, I was in 2.5 months into the process, I think it's called. So, yeah, just even to be like, hey, can I get a mint mojito, sweet and creamy, please? Because, yeah.
Just normal everyday things then.
Correct,
Pretty much
yes. Or a Snickers bar. Yeah, that was my big thing. I'm like, when you're doing it in the rehab hospital, which was second and third, you pretty much, I say workout. That's not exactly it, but I mean, it's like full time doing that. And then you have hospital food, which is, how do you say, nice, thanks, but I mean, not awesome. So, yes, just even getting a, what do you call it, like a Snickers bar too.
Yeah, and Alexa said that she missed her family and friends, which is understandable because particularly when you're in ICU, you're very limited to the number of guests, and you're not really up for guests anyway.
Yeah, well, I will just say, funny side note, they thought I would die, so they kind of did away with 2 person. They let everybody back, and then 2 days goes by, and they're like, oh crap, she might live. So then they had to like step it back.
Oh crap, she might live because we're allowing too many people to go back there, not because
correct.
they were disappointed you were going to live.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
See, a side note, this is the amazing thing about Paula. I'm like, it makes sense in my head, like, duh. But then she helps translate, so.
You kind of sometimes speak like a dyslexic person would write. And I'm not trying to be offensive, but that's the best way I know how to describe it.
Well, actually, that's probably pretty good. Oh, and hi, Deb. So, sorry I cannot put your comment up here yet. It only allows me to do YouTube, but I'm working on it. I'm going to get Facebook comments up there. So, hey. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
All right, so the next question that I had was, what was the best thing that someone did for you while you were in the hospital? And again, all of this is outside of medical scope.
Right. So, and another thing, how should I feel like my time is all like hilarious. I mean, obviously it wasn't for my family and all, but when I think back, my mom used to joke around and said I was holding court in my room. Like, I'd let all these people come in and I was talking, doing all this. And I'm like, well, firstly, I mean, if people are coming to the hospital, I feel like I need to not entertain them, but talk. And so there's that. But I forgot what you asked me.
What was the best thing someone did for you?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So when they'd visit me, I was very, very thankful. But I think the best things was when I got coffee and even a Snickers bar. I know that sounds silly, but it's just little things like contacting my friends when I finally got my phone back. So
being able to make that contact yourself through your phone.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was my whole idea in creating this app, because I want to help people to reach out to their community, their friends.
Right. And I, of course, again, asked Alexa the same question. And her response was she wasn't really certain because all of that's behind her now, so the memories aren't quite there fully for her. But Monique, her mom, said that music was provided for her, and Alexa loves music and she loves to sing, and that her friends and the staff members treated her as a human, not just somebody in a hospital bed. And I think that's huge when you're in a recovery process, that people don't forget the person that is in the bed or in the wherever they may be during the recovery.
Oh, and that is good. So if you can see kind of back there-ish. So I kind of messed up. I was having a surprise party well, it was supposed to be a day after my accident. Well, they still had the party in the hospital, my surprise party in the hospital parking lot. So that was the thing that they did is they, brought pictures and wrote notes because they wanted the nurses and caretakers to see, hey, she's a real person. She has friends.
Oh, nice, nice.
And that was a way to kind of
and see, connect. And I looked at it as something just for you to have as a memory. But yeah, not even thinking about, no, she is somebody.
Yeah, and actually,
it means a lot to people.
That's totally why they did that.
That is really cool. Very cool. Okay, the next question is, did you feel as though the medical staff did a good job explaining to you your injury when you were at the point that you could best comprehend what had happened to you?
What's comprehend? Sorry, I was distracted.
Yeah. No, did they explain to you, once you were able to process and understand things, were they able to explain to you, this is what happened, these are the injuries that you have, this is what we're expecting your recovery to be like? Do you feel like you got a good explanation of all of that?
No.
And Alexis said the same thing, but really? She said that a lot of it was I guess with the brain injury, you just don't really know until the person is actually going through their recovery.
Yeah, and that is a good point to make. Like, oh, and by the way, hey, Melissa, and
Savannah Jackson made it. It's not Jackson anymore. Gosh, that's from years ago. And Savannah's suggestion was that we continue with our uniforms.
I think it's hilarious. See, we're all over the place, but hey, not totally my fault. But no. So I always wear this as my uniform every day because one less thing to decide. But yeah, so we seem to have a uniform.
I've always done that too. Used to when I worked, it was always a polo, although the color would be different every day because I didn't want people to think I wore the same thing every day. Yeah. Khakis and a polo. Yeah. Like Jake from State Farm.
Well,
that was me.
See, there you go, man. Right, that's good. That's pretty much what I do. I do a t-shirt and khakis, but anyways. Oh, and I just
matches the tattoo. You're right. It does. It does. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I need to. Maybe I should put this in between us. See, my friends Heather and Tom are actually perfect because Tom is left-handed and he sits here and Heather's right. Yeah, so they can both use a mouse. No, I can't.
You're not left-handed.
Nope, and my left hand's
doesn't work that well.
How do you say? Yes, I was gonna say janky, but yeah, it's anyways, but yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I probably know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway because I do have Alexa's answer. But what did you miss most while you were in the hospital, other than coffee? Because that's the answer I'm expecting.
That's the answer. Yeah, coffee and whiskey.
Oh, that's a good thing to miss. It's a terrible thing to miss, I should say. Well, no, I figured you would say coffee.
Oh, well, coffee, yeah, because, that was my, sorry, I should, But, that was a thing because I am thankful for the hospital and everything they did for me, but their coffee was shit. And it was funny because my mom was even cutting me off. I could only have 2 cups at the end. I'm like, I would like to say as a software engineer in San Francisco, you pick your job based on what kind of coffee you can get. So, man, I was
you were limited to 2 in the hospital per mommy.
2 hospital cups.
So not really even coffee.
So, it's like flavored water.
Right.
Terrible.
Alexa said she missed food because she had a feeding tube, so she could not even eat.
Wow, yeah.
And then, of course, always family and friends. But that always happens a lot of times. On a deeper note, this is something I've thought about, too. Like, while you were lying in the hospital bed, I don't know, did you have a decent enough view? Or was it just another part of the hospital building that you could see out of the window? Or do you remember any of the places there? Yeah. Any of the hospitals, I should say.
Crap. I'm trying to think now, but I don't recall as far as I didn't really look.
Well, I guess okay. Well, the reason I ask is, are you so involved in your recovery and getting better and getting on with your life that at no time, or maybe just minuscule amount of time, looking out the window and seeing that the world continues,
Yeah.
knowing that you're not right now an active part of it?
Right. Well, that was the thing for me. It's like I didn't remember the first 2 months of or it wasn't until the second hospital, like the last 2 weeks, that I was like with it ish. Like, so I didn't even, well, firstly remember or even know what was going on. But yeah, I think, gosh, see, now I'm like, man, I should have thought about this. So, yeah.
Did you just not have time to think about the outside world because you were so focused on
Yeah,
your
that was
task
pretty
at
much
hand?
it. And one thing, it's kind of funny, I feel bad for my mother. Well, thankful, because my mother was with me all 4 months of the hospitals, but she had to answer so many times because I was like, I gotta go. I gotta get to work. And I was like, get panicked and stuff. And they're like, so then they'd have to kind of explain again, you're in the hospital. You can't do anything. I couldn't even type at that time. But anyways,
Or
can't
walk
even
or
type.
anything.
Oh yeah, could not walk. Could not really talk well. And so, yeah, I just remember being like, oh crap, I gotta get to work. So, and by the way, I've been there like 6 months, but I still considered it new.
Well, 6 months is new to be on the job.
Yeah.
All right, then my next question is, did you feel as though your friends tried to treat you as they did prior to your accident, or did you feel like they were like coddling you too much, or treating you more like you're a child versus their equal as you were prior to?
Yeah. Well, thankfully, I do believe they did treat me normally-ish. Like, and I will say, what is it? Rick, and of course I forget your name now, but Rick, from ALC, he is so cool. He came every Monday night after his job to come and tell me about the weekend ride. And
Oh, nice.
I'm mortified. I'm so excited, but I'm mortified because I heard later that okay, need to do this. Sorry, I heard later that one time, I cannot remember it, but when he came in, and he had to do a lot. He had to ride so many miles, getting on MARTA, and then ride a couple more miles. You know, it's like, it was a thing.
But it was Bart, not Marta, correct?
Oh, sorry, Marty. Yeah,
Bart.
Bart. Ugh. So, yes. See, I'm already tuned to Atlanta MARTA. Bart. So, he got there one night, and so I just went, and he was like, guess I'm going home, no visitors. I'm like, I did that. So I am mortified, but I'm like, he was awesome. So he had to treat me normally-ish, or included me. He wanted me to know because we used to go riding every weekend, and I love that. I love the community that I had with the ALC community. Like, we go on training rides, which is on the bicycles, like, you know, well, at that time it was getting to 60, 70 miles, 80. And so that's a good chunk of your Saturday morning, you know. And so, yeah, I was mortified that I did that, but he was good. And I had many other from the community, my friends, that just come up and be like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah. Because I often wonder how I would have been because I didn't know you then.
Correct.
How I would have been. I mean, and I can only relate it like to taking care of Tom, my stepdad, and my mother, because I didn't treat them the same, but I couldn't treat them the same because of their dementia. You know, I had to become the adult in that relationship.
Yeah.
So I just wondered if that has any impact when, you hear someone has a TBI and you automatically think, okay, well, they can't do this now, they can't do that. But it didn't affect your ability to think.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that's maybe kind of weird. I mean, they probably, or they may have changed how they talk to me. And I did hear later lots of people were worried, because they're like, what can she do? What can she not do? Like,
right.
What do I do? So, and I mean, I feel bad. I'm like, dude, they still had lives, and I still struggle with that. I'm like, they still are in the real world. They have real lives. I'm just hanging out in a hospital bed.
But you had the tougher job ahead of you than what they had in the real world.
Well, that's cute of you and sweet.
It's true, though. You were really in a much tougher place. They had it easy. Not you, nor did Alexa. I asked Alexa the same question about did her friends treat her the same, or did she feel coddled? And her response was she didn't think they coddled her enough. So, and her mom said that they did treat her the same, but she felt like Alexa's dad's family and her dad as well probably coddled her too much. And I think I would have a hard time balancing between the two, knowing what to do. And I mean, anytime someone's really sick, regardless, depending, I mean, for me, when someone's really sick, I know even like with my grandmother, when she had pancreatic cancer, we knew she was dying. She knew she was dying, but I didn't want to change the dynamic of our relationship to make her think that the only thing in my mind was her impending death. I wanted to keep it where it had always been.
Yeah.
But it was a struggle a lot of times, to do that because of the sadness of what was around the corner for us and a lot of times just seeing her there knowing that, she just really didn't feel well.
Yeah, yeah. And I do think that is like different because it's different stages.
Right, yeah.
So, I could see that. Like,
you had the knowledge and the true hope of improvement, like with my grandmother, my brother when he was passing away with AIDS, or even after he was diagnosed. You had hope, whereas I mean, and they didn't have. Well, yeah, but I mean, look where you are, and even within the hospital, you made great strides in the hospital. That, looking back on it now, you were still in pretty bad shape, but it was huge compared to where you had been.
Yeah, that's true.
So with you, there was always that. It was that known that you could continue to work and get better, whereas with people who have a terminal illness, it's not. So I guess as the visitor or the friend or the family member, it comes across as a different dynamic when visiting.
Yeah, I think maybe that's it, because when I think back to my time in the hospital, I'm like, I was devastated. I mean, I was like, my life is over. I just, lost 160 pounds. That's a big deal. Oh, and then I went to a coding boot camp and learned how to code and got a job in San Francisco. And then, what am I going to do? I can't even walk. I can't even really talk well. And I was like, there was a sense of panic. So it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to chill, peace. Yeah, going to work on getting better. I'm like, my life is over. What do I do? So.
Yeah, and that would be a tough hurdle. I mean, I can't imagine what that would even feel like. No one can, obviously, unless you've been in that situation. I mean, and that's one of the many things when you told your story. I mean, I was hooked. I was like, it was just instant admiration and love for you to know where you had been and where you are now. And I see the same thing with Alexa when I'm going through her TikToks. I mean, you can see the progress that she's making. I don't want to say I feel sorry. It hurts my heart to see her at such a young age because I know what it's like to be 17 and you're running around with your friends and you're driving and you're really starting to get your independence. And then it's taken away, much like you had a brand new career, a brand new life, new friends, a new direction, and all of that was taken away.
Yeah.
And now to rebuild again. But you still have your friends.
Yes. Thankfully, I still have my friends. They're amazing. And, even now with the whole pandemic, it's a little interesting because people have moved out of San Francisco. And I'm like, oh, my buddies. But I'm like, they need to do them. Like, they need to take care of themselves. And so, looking at it now, I'm like, yeah, it's awesome because I'm thinking I would have had to probably move-ish, but I'm like,
Right.
I didn't even want to think about that. So
Right.
it kind of got decided for me. But, okay.
Well, I was just going to say, you mentioned about the pandemic. Can you imagine how different your recovery would have been while you were in the hospitals had there been the pandemic at that time versus now?
Yeah. The thing is so different because, night and day, it's completely different because, having people come to visit me, talk to me was a huge thing. It definitely made a huge difference to me because if we can go to, I'm words of affirmation girl. I love that. Talk to me, write me a note. That's the best present. Don't buy anything for me. Just speak words to me. Write words to me. I love it. That's why I'm so glad you speak words to me, encourage me.
I try my best.
As Heather said, my personal life coach.
Yes, and proud to have that job.
Yep, I am so excited.
Yeah, because Alexa, her last 3 months of recovery were during the height of COVID.
Oh, wow.
So she was at the facility by herself. And, it would have been a little bit different maybe for you just because of the age difference. You were an adult and she was, still a child.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alexa, but 18, 19, still a child in my book. And as you get older, you'll see the same. Yeah. But I know they had to make it tougher for her.
Correct. Yeah, and that's one thing that is very much a difference. Like, having that aspect, that is huge. I remember, even talking about things you don't get to do versus it. Sorry, I'll go back. One of my friends from elementary school through high school, she has a kid who's autistic. And she's like, she got mad at me because she was like, he will never know what it's like to drive. He will, this, that. And I'm like, I can't drive anymore. But I knew it, I felt it, I tasted it. Now it's gone. What's worse?
Yeah.
So.
That's tough, yeah, because you don't know what's tough. What is it? It's better to be a has-been than a never was?
Yeah. Well,
Kinda,
ish, yeah.
It doesn't really completely fit that, but
Yeah.
basically that's what it is. Okay, so the other question was, would you have preferred that your recovery been documented from the earliest point until you were actually released from the hospital?
Oh. And that's, how do you say, interesting? I'm like, I'm a weirdo and I love this stuff, obviously. Like, I love to dig in and, I've always been a researcher. I dig in, I study, and see. I want to see that. The only picture I have was because my little sister went and took a picture before Mom came in or anything because Mom said no. And I appreciate her protecting me.
Right.
But I think it would have been kind of cool to see it over the time and release it if I choose or not.
And that's what Alexa said, because she said then she would be more able to actually physically see the progress that she's made.
Correct, yeah.
And now with her TikTok, she is. It didn't start from an earlier point from when she first had her accident, but now you can clearly see it, and she can watch it, and that's got to mean a lot.
that is something I know. I was interviewed the day before my accident for someone working on their master's or doctorates, I think. And so it's kind of cool because I have that recording. I'm able to go back and hear what I did sound like. You know, there's even, thanks to Paula, she found I did commercial for the boot camp I went to, and I'm like, that was just a few months before my accident. So I'm like, oh, I look normal. I talk normal. I'm like, I think completely different. What do you think?
I think you have a new normal.
Yes.
That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, there is that.
It's true.
Yep. Yep.
Next is, was there any time while you were in the hospital that you felt scared or alone? And if so, anything that you can think of that would have helped you with that?
Anything that was, sorry, real quick.
Yeah, that's okay.
Let me see. Whoopsie. Hi, Sammy. And then Heather. So, but what?
Were you ever scared?
Was I ever scared? Well, and that is an interesting question because, yeah, scared. I'm like, I thought my life was over. I'm like,
so you were scared of the future?
Yeah, I was scared because I'm like, I just did this. I just lost all this weight. I just got a job or learned how to code and went to San Francisco, and now I'm like, I'm not gonna have a job. What do I do?
But don't you think, and not taking away your fear at all, and certainly it's justifiable, but if all of us, in any given situation, you know, just even at home, if you tried to look out to the future at the big picture, it is scary. I mean, you just can't, you've got to take what's right in front of you because that's all you can manage.
Yeah.
So that's just my take on that.
So Savannah asked, so how long were you coding before the accident? Good question. I'm like, I had just gotten, well, I feel like I had just gotten started. So it was actually a year and a half, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Just got it. I'm like, Gee. So, yeah, it wasn't too long. So that's why I feel like it was still new.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Okay. And Alexa, her fear, or what had her most scared, was when she was in the second rehab and she was all alone because of the COVID quarantine, and they would not allow people to come in.
Wow. Yeah.
So, yeah, that would be. I mean, it's not that no one. It's not just that no one is there, but it's knowing that they can't come in.
Yeah.
It's not like they're just working today and they'll be back later. It's they can't come in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, tapping on that, I'm like, would not have liked that. In my second rehab hospital, I'm like, it was the furthest one out, so I didn't have as many visitors there. Yet, I didn't remember until the last 2 weeks of that.
So you didn't miss what you didn't know.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, sorry, I can't totally speak to that other than, whoa, way to go.
And another question, are there any services that you wish had been provided to you while in the hospital, given the length of time you were there, outside of normal services? And by additional services, I'm talking about like someone come in to cut your hair or do your precious eyebrows or manicure, pedicure, or anything like that. Was there anything that you wish, or were any of those services available?
That is a good question because those services were not available, but thankfully my
What a good
friends,
volunteer opportunity for people.
Yes, if you were a hair or a hairstylist, dude, yes. But how do you say? My friends got with one of our other friends in the ALC community, Michelle, and she came to cut my hair. I was so excited because I was like getting to the point where I was having to wear hats all the time. And I was like, this is not okay. And funny, I had the day before my accident, I had gotten my eyebrows done. And so Tanner, my buddy Tanner, like, when I was in a coma and stuff, she's like, she has the best eyebrows in the hospital. I'm like, wow, in the hospital.
Sorry. So none of those services, even when you were at rehabilitation centers, none of that was provided.
Yeah, because technically I was in rehab hospitals for the last two. The first one was just keep her alive.
Yeah.
And ICU, but then the second two were rehab hospitals, and no.
Well, I guess the difference in the healthcare system here versus Canada, because Alexa, they provided everything. Oh. And if it wasn't there in the facility, they took Alexa to the facility.
Oh, see.
Which is really nice because, like you talked about before, about just, I mean, or maybe you didn't talk about it, but you want to feel like you have as much of your life back as possible, and hair by pillow is just not a look that you want, you know.
Yep. No.
So yeah, it just seems like if you want to help somebody in their recovery, regardless of why they are there, if it's a point that you can make them come in, and I mean, just a good bath and hair, makeup, anything like that, I think the better the person feels on the outside about themselves, I would think really helps them with further their recovery.
Yeah. Oh, and I will say, like, the whole, like, getting a bath and stuff, yes, that did happen, or shower. Anyways, the caretakers did facilitate that, but yeah, other stuff, and I'm sure, like, cutting nails, even now, you had to what?
Cut your right hand.
Cut my right hand. My left hand I can do because my right hand's my good hand, but I was, like, trying to, and I'm like, I didn't think that was such a hard thing. Turns out it kind of is. Oh, and
I can do that, though.
Well, and thankfully you can. So, and speaking of, how do people?
It's a weird thing to do, Savannah, because I used to do it for my stepdad as well, and it's similar to I'm sure when you did it with, well, I'll say what you did it with your daughter when she was an infant. I know some parents do, some parents don't. Lucy's, when she was a baby, I always did hers when she was asleep, so she wouldn't fight or anything. But with doing somebody else's, it's not the easiest thing because you can't feel what you're doing. So you wonder, do I have nail or do I have a little bit of skin in there? Yeah. And a lot of times it's just a matter of clipping and. Yeah. So you know what? It's weird, right? To do someone else's fingernails and not have the sensation of what that fingernail clipper feels like as you're clipping and making sure you're not getting too close.
See this part where I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. So a lot of times it's just a matter of, okay, I hope I don't have anything in there that's not supposed to be inside that little clip, and just go for it.
And it's all, like, that's the thing for me. Well, now I think it's hilarious-ish because I'm like, I actually keep my nails very short. Why? Well, because I play guitar. So, and that's the, funny-ish part of me. I'm like, my left hand is my
most
affected side, like my whole left side. But I can cut my nails, so I can't play guitar good, but I'm able to do that, and that's really what I care about. But, I mean, I had to get Paula. I clipped my left hand, that was good, and so I had to get Paula to do my right hand. I had to wait like a week, and then you're finally like, all right, let's do it. But, I was like, I don't know, it's a weird thing, I'm sure, for a caregiver.
On the other side, it is. It's kind of, like Savannah, odd is a good word for it. It does. It feels really strange, particularly when it's an adult versus a kid, because it's just odd. Theirs is so paper thin, it's nothing really to cutting them. Yeah. Another question I had, at any of the hospitals or for rehab, did they have any service or a person come in with any sort of therapy dog?
Yeah, well, I don't personally remember, but back in, I don't know, first or second hospital, like they did allow service or people to come in with service dogs and comfort. And it's funny, even a black lab, so I'm like my survey now, but I was able, Mom took a picture of me like holding it off of, or not holding it, but trying to pet it off my hospital bed. And it was something truly of comfort to me. I don't remember it, but I love dogs. And so, thinking it must have been awesome for me.
And it's strange that, I mean, it's good that that's something that people do that have therapy dogs, that they can bring them in. Alexa was able to experience that in all the facilities where she stayed. I've seen it where the assisted living, where my stepdad and mother both were at separate times. They had a dog come in, and it's amazing how the people's faces just light up as soon as they see the dog. It's just something instantaneous, and you can tell it really does them a world of good. Yeah. And it's just a matter, like you said, petting the dog or having the dog come up to them. It's the interaction is not long term. It's a short, because they've got to go around to everybody. Yeah. I mean, there were some there that just not dog people. Yeah, yeah. And that was fine. But for those that were dog people, you could tell that was really a part of their lives that they missed. Yeah. And it meant a great deal to them. So I think that's huge. That has done. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I've wondered about doing that and getting survey trained. I mean, she is trained to be my service dog, so that's awesome. But then I'm like, oh, I could do that for others. And I'm like, but I got so much going on. Yeah. But hey, I want to do all the things. But yeah. Well, talking about the comfort and the joy of having a service dog come in, or a therapy dog, I should say, come in. On the other flip side, what was the most annoying thing that you experienced while in the hospital? The most annoying thing? That is a good question. Having to share a bathroom. Really? No, not that that's annoying. I'm not surprised that that's annoying. I'm surprised you had to share a bathroom. That was... Well, at the... I don't know the first, but second hospital, there was 2 people in a room, and then they were connected by a bathroom. So 4 people in one bathroom? Correct, yeah. And actually, I swear I wasn't going to say this, but there you go. So I was going to go to my third hospital, and I was so excited, but I got to actually use the restroom, and how should I say? Basically, I was going number 2, and I was wiping, and I leaned over and went face first into the door jamb, and then fell on the floor. So I'm like, what? So that was when you had a room to yourself? No. And this is when I had to share a room. Oh, okay. And the caretaker, what do you call him, CNS? Yeah. So she had been... I always had to go to the bathroom and have somebody with me, which now I see why. But she was going out to the other side because she couldn't get through the door. Anyway, so she had to go out and in the other room and in from that side. Oh, just to get to you. Just to get to me. But I was already on the floor. It had already happened. So, oh, wow. I think, my mom definitely would try. Anyways, but with that, I had to go to the hospital, to a different hospital, and get, what do you call it, MRI and all that stuff. Just to make sure that hit. I didn't have more, what do you call it, brain bleeds. So. Yeah, and Alexis was waiting for people to come to her. I'm assuming she means like if she needed something, particularly when she was at a facility by herself during COVID, which we're still in, obviously, but during her time during COVID, during the pandemic. Because I know, I think everybody has experienced it, and I think it's a whole lot worse since COVID has come about, because hospitals are just overwrought with patients. But yeah, because I think a lot of times it's easy to forget that those nurses have way too many patients that they have to deal with, and your need is the only thing you're focused on. And sometimes that need is a critical need. Having to go to the bathroom can be pretty critical.
Yeah.
And if you don't have someone to help you, then you probably don't feel like you have a choice.
Yeah. And on that note, I will say, well, and once again, I never said I'd say it, but here it will. So for the first 2 months, I was in diapers. Yeah. I couldn't go to the bathroom. So that's why that time that I face first into the door jam, I'm like, it was so nice to have my privacy, like to do it myself, if that makes sense.
No, I get that.
And then I couldn't go to the other hospital because it took too long, and I'm like,
That was all the questions I had. Then I just had some comments to make as far as whoever the caregiver is. Because a lot of times when you're in a situation like that, whether the caregiver is there physically with you in a hospital setting or even at home and care is still having to be administered, the focus, and rightfully so, is on the patient. But it shouldn't always be so much on the patient that the caregiver is completely forgotten, because that can be such a hard life to live. It's time consuming, it's mentally and physically and emotionally exhausting. At times it seems unappreciated, and it's just really tough. So as a friend or a family member, just, a quick call to see if there's errands you can run, because a lot of times the caregiver is confined. Can you do any errands? Can you do anything to help around the house? Light cleaning or laundry. A lot of times it's very difficult as a caregiver sometimes to step away just to do the mundane day-to-day chores that have to be done to live. I know with Mom, prior to the pandemic, she had a friend that would come over and they would play cards as best as Mom could. And even though I was there still at the house, I would run a quick errand, only because I did not want Mom's friend to have to deal with anything unpleasant. But just knowing there was someone else there for the time being, that I could just breathe, it was nice. So sometimes it's just a matter of having somebody that's competent and reliable and able to help, even if it's as intimate as helping with bath time. It's a chore to be responsible for helping someone get a shower every single day, and physically helping them in and out. Someone who could call 911. Definitely. Because there were a couple of times that Mom fell before her dementia got so bad, but she fell out of bed that she was unable to call 911 until we got an Alexa. And we put that in her room where she could say, "Alexa, call 911." And then we had a remote door on a door lock so that she could then in turn call us, and we could actually unlock the door so the paramedics could get in if need be and help her get up off the floor. So thankfully with technology, there are some ways that it does help out with the caregiver. But the biggest thing is just being there 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It's nice to know that you can step away, leave your home, and know that your loved one's in someone's capable, loving hands. And you can just nap, or go to a movie, when you could go to a movie, and just realize that there's more to the world than just your little the situation you're currently in. And then Monique mentioned, Alexa's mom, Monique, mentioned some really good points too, as far as being the caregiver. When you leave the hospital, having appropriate resources given to you that can help the person that's actually in recovery and the caregiver too, instead of you as the caregiver trying to search and not even knowing if what you found is appropriate, or would it work, or is it still even there. You know, just because it's on the internet listed doesn't mean it's available.
Need to start that so I remember.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
that's huge, right?
That.
Yeah. And then, and for some families, all the trips back and forth for therapies can be rather expensive.
Yeah, I was about to say, I still had to do, 3 days a week at outpatient when I got home.
And that can get time consuming, particularly if the person requires the therapy but can be at home alone, but so that whoever they live with can work. But then that person has to take off from work and go. So it's tough not having any compensation for that. One thing Monique mentioned, and you can maybe speak on this too, was the lack of therapies for brain injuries.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if it's because every brain injury is so different, but it just seems like even if it's all so different, a deficit is a deficit.
Yeah.
And recognizing what those deficits are and tuning the therapies for that is something that would be doable.
Yep, that would actually be very helpful, and I will speak to this. Yes, there does need to be that, because what therapy did I have? Well, I had, physical therapy is pretty much legs and stuff, and then occupational therapy was pretty much arms and up,
And I had all that with my hip, which is a completely different type of situation, so
Exactly, and then I had speech therapy, which... I was like, it didn't help. I still talk funny, but it was also, they threw in a little bit of cognitive therapy in with it. But, a speech therapist is not a cognitive therapist, I think. And I'm like, yes, there needs to be more, even just exercises or, things to play. And that's why I want to do it, like things to play on an iPad, like, do this, spend 5 minutes and do that, because it is a very important thing.
Right. And with technology and Zoom and everything else, and going back to the funds for making all these trips to various places, and when you've suffered an injury like that and you've got all these different types of therapies, I would think the cognitive therapy could be done through Zoom, and where you could reach more people.
Yeah. That is a good thing. We can talk even about money. Mm-hmm. I ran out of money for my insurance for that year. So I had to stop going in, October?
Wow, that's bizarre.
Like October. And then I had to wait until it picked back up in January.
Yeah, that's like a 6 weeks worth of YouTube videos we could do on the health care in the U.S. And then the final thing Monique mentioned, and something I hadn't even thought about, but was respite care for brain injury patients. Not only do caregivers need to get out and get away, but so do the patients. I think it's probably more important that they can get out.
The caregivers.
No. That the patient themselves can get out of their house and have someone that can help them just try to enjoy life, just to get out and be, I hate to use the word normal, but just to go out and go for a walk. If you're not able to walk, have someone there that can just take you somewhere in a wheelchair, or just something so you're not confined either. Wow. Because you spend all that time in the hospital, and then you get home, and then now you're just at home.
Yep, actually, and just like Spanna says, that is a good point.
Yeah, that was from Monique. I think it's an excellent point.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about that, but I'm like, yes, I remember being at home, and like I said, I just turned 36, and they had my surprise party, but I'm like, I'm a 36-year-old lesbian in the South, in a very conservative area, and I'm like, and I'm living with my parents. What? And I'm like, what do I do? I'm like, I remember having to be like, hey, Dad, can you drive me to Starbucks? I'm like, what do I do? Sit in Starbucks for 2 hours? Then I have to get him to come back so he can drive me home? I was like, that was the entire extent of my getting out. Being on my own.
And that's not really it for you.
Yeah, so That is a good point. You know, like, what? I was definitely blown away.
Yeah, that's something we need to brainstorm on and see.
Correct. Yeah.
While I'm thinking about it, you can meet Alexa and her mom, Monique, on TikTok. And if you're not on TikTok because you think it's silly or people do stuff to gain attention that are doing sometimes even dangerous stuff, there is a lot of that, no joking aside. However, there is a lot of good information on TikTok. There's a lot of people out there. Whatever it is you're interested in, whether it's a hobby or a life situation that you're in, there's a search bar. You type it in and you're bound to find something. And that's how I found Alexa and Monique. So if you'd like to meet them, their TikTok, you can find them. They're at Rise Up Alexa is their TikTok account. And go give them a follow. They're really inspirational.
Yep. And we are planning to have them.
Yes, we're gonna set up a Zoom call so we can talk first with both of them, and then work around Alexa's school schedule and actually bring both of them in for one of our TBI Tuesdays, so we can talk with both.
See,
So yeah, get a whole different perspective.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So
Different perspective, and it'd be interesting from that perspective to get it from someone who's younger too.
correct. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is true. Because I'm like, you love to give me grief about being so old now, even though you just had a birthday. And
Yeah, I did. I'm still recovering.
right. So
You know what's odd about that birthday? In the kitchen, if you look out the window to the backyard, I'm 58.
yeah,
But if you go outside and look through that same window,
yeah,
I'm 85.
kind of getting on up there,
Right.
huh? Oh goodness, it's all in how you look at it.
That's
huh?
right. And there's days I straddle both.
Perspectives. Gosh, it's something. Well, thank you for tuning in, checking it out, and if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know.
We appreciate you guys watching. And again, like Aubrey said, anything we can answer for you, we're happy to. And look forward to seeing you Saturday when we just talk nonsense or entertaining, or
Yes, all the things.
it could be anything. And then we'll be back Tuesday for more TBI Tuesday. And again, I want to thank Savannah for the suggestion
yep.
on us continuing with our shirts. Excellent idea on her part.
Yep,
She's kind of like a executive producer for us,
yep,
remote. So
there we
thanks.
go. Yep.
Thank you, Heather. We appreciate you watching.
yep. So thank you so much, and above all, remember, you matter, your story matters, and you belong here. Cheers.
See you guys.